Welcome to World History class. My name is Jennifer Horgan and I am going to present about health in the Middle Ages. This is a topic that I'm very passionate about and find very interesting. If you look in this picture, you can see a woman here and it appears as if there is a basin of blood that is coming out of her arm. And we have another fellow here that is plagued by some sort of a disease. And we're going to learn through the slideshow what were some of the common ailments of this time period and what were some ways that the people treated these ailments. So first of all, they believed during this time that if you had too much fluid in your body, then you were going to be unhealthy. And this was called the four humors, and it could be blood, phlegm, yellow bowel, or black bowel. And the main job of the doctor was to eliminate some of this from the body if a person was sick. And most people that could afford to see a doctor had money. They were the wealthy people. Looking at this picture here, we have a plague doctor. During the Middle Ages, one of the main things that happened was the Bubonic Plague, otherwise known as the Black Death. And this is a close-up picture of the plague doctor's mask. As you can see here, it was an early version of a hazmat suit. I'll go into more detail later about the parts of this getup that the doctors would wear. Common cures during the Middle Ages would be bleeding. They called this bloodletting. There would be purging with laxatives, use of emetics. This is talking about ways to make a person vomit to get the yellow or bowel out of the body. Dosing with medicines was something that they often did, and certain things that they would mix could allow these fluids to be eliminated from the body. In this picture, this is a picture similar to the first one, we have a lady that is having bloodletting done to her. The doctor would cut the area of the body that would give the person pain to let out the blood, and it was believed that if they let the blood out, the infection would go out of the body. Here are some pictures that go along with what I was just talking about. Along with bloodletting, instead of cutting an area, sometimes they would use leeches. So this is a picture of a man that is using leeches to suck out the infection in his body. This is a woman that is collecting herbs, and sometimes we had superstitious things that would happen, and they believed that if they picked certain herbs in the moonlight, it would help cure a person. There were all kind of wives' tales about how to cure people. As you can see here, this is a picture of the bathroom, and it was a very unsanitary place, which definitely contributed to a lot of ailments in this time period. This is a diagram right here of the four types of humors that we went over in the earlier slide, and how the body needs to have a perfect balance of these liquids in order to be in good health. Here is a close-up picture of a leech, and yet another picture of a person using the bloodletting through the use of leeches. They had many people did this during the Middle Ages. It was very common. In today's world, they also will use leeches in certain medical procedures, and leeches have a blood thinner in them. There were many unsanitary conditions during the Middle Ages. The people back then had very poor hygiene. They didn't have a very good medical knowledge. They had to rely on past textbooks to let them know anything, and there were many different schools of thought about how to cure people. So I talked earlier about the Black Death in England, and here is a picture of the plague doctor again in the full suit that they would wear. In this picture, he looks like he has a beak. The reason for this is the smell of the decaying bodies would be so powerful that the doctor would want to put a little thing of flowers or herbs right here, sometimes posies, sometimes something else that would smell more powerful than what their surroundings were. They also had a little sheet of glass over their eye to prevent the infection from getting in their eye. You can see here in the picture, they have a hat. This goes all the way up to their neck, the gloves, and they had these boots as well. So almost like a hazmat suit, and they even carried a stick. If anyone that was infected got too close to them, they would wave them away. An innocent children's song of this time period is Ring Around the Rosie, and the lyrics Ring Around the Rosie, during the Black Death, one of the symptoms was a ring that would appear around your fingers or your toes, a pocket full of posies. If you were infected, you would carry around flowers on your person to try to cut down on the smell. Ashes, ashes, we all fall down. People that were infected, when they died, they would burn the bodies. And so many people, 1/3 of the population of England, died during this time period. So that's the lyrics of this innocent childhood song. That's why I put that picture in there. And it was one of the main health problems of this time period. We also have here a lack of sanitation, especially in the large town or cities. There wasn't running water. People would throw their dirty water outside of windows. There was something called rushes, and these were floor coverings, and they would get very dirty. Instead of replacing them or trying to clean them, they would just put layer upon layer over one another. And there'll be a picture of that coming up soon. Another problem that we have during this time is there are many wars that people were going to fight. There was the 100 Years' War, the Crusades, the War of the Roses, and one of the main things that people would suffer from would be arrows. People would have infections. The doctors did not have any way to halt the infection. They would have no way of killing the pain. So many times we had amputations that would happen. Wounds had to be cauterized without anesthetics. And here's a good picture of some of the arrows that could end up in a person's body. Earlier I talked about unsanitary conditions. I liked this picture because it just shows you what people would do. They would just take dirty water that they had used and just pour it into the streets. Many people did not have a good diet during this time, so they weren't eating that well. There were many diseases, and it didn't matter if you were wealthy or poor. A lot of people suffered from these conditions. Anemia, rheumatism, arthritis, tuberculosis, and dysentery were common, especially dysentery because of the poor water conditions. Childbearing during this time period, you were pretty much told by a doctor to get your affairs in order if you were about to give birth. Many women did not make it through the birth process. There were many women who died. They just did not have ways to keep equipment sterile, and there were no anesthetics of any kind, and it led to many infections. Influenza was still a problem, and they called this the sweating sickness. In addition, there were STDs that many people did not know how to treat, and some do not have a cure. Other health hazards that exist in this time period, the streets were often filled with garbage. Well, garbage is going to attract critters. As you can see a picture here of rats. The rats and other types of animals are going to want to come after the garbage. And they even dumped waste into the river. And when that happened, you really had a problem because some people were using this water to drink from it, and then you had it being contaminated. This is a picture of the rush that I talked about. That's a floor covering. And there's a quote up here that talks about the floors are laid with white clay and they're covered with rushes. And it talks about how if people are sick on the rug, there could be other types of leakages, scraps of food, other things that they don't even want to talk about are ground into this carpet, and the people just keep using it. So that is definitely something that led to poor living conditions. I hope that you enjoyed this presentation about health in the Middle Ages. There are many, many other interesting things that they did during this time period, so many to mention on this short presentation. There are some really good resources in the World History book in class, and also if you go online, there are also many valuable resources. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Goodbye.